Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Book Wyrm Club pick. I am Alex. If you're new here, this is my channel, Frank Fiction. And as always, my lovely co-host and friend, Kat from Kat's Novel Adventures is here. Kat, would you like to do a brief introduction of yourself for everybody?
I am Kat of Kat's Novel Adventures, and I like to read and do a plethora of other things. I read a lot of different things, really, almost anything but hardcore, steamy romance.
Me too. Yeah, that's so perfect. And we probably will not do a hardcore steamy romance at any point during our book club, but we did do a romance this year.
We
Like
did. It
one.
was cozy. It was a cozy cottage.
Yeah, but this time we're kind of
Cottage core.
going back to a little bit more of what we typically read. I would count this as a historical fiction. Would
Mm-hmm.
you agree, Kat? Okay, and
Yes.
our pick for this bi-monthly meeting is Deacon King Kong by James McBride. And while I give everybody the customary brief synopsis of the book, feel free to go in the chat and write or put a red heart if you read the book, a black heart if you didn't read it, and a skull if you did have to. Because we always like to know kind of how people are feeling. And this is also the part of the conversation where things are spoiler free. So this is just the synopsis, and we talk about like what our rating was, and then we dive right into the book. So if you're hoping to not have things spoiled for you, this is definitely not the place to be. And you can always come back and watch it later. So Deacon King Kong by James McBride. This takes place in 1969 in Brooklyn in a place called the Causeway Housing Projects. And in the projects, there is a church called the Five Ends Baptist Church, and there is an old deacon named Sportcoat who has been at this church for many years. And one day, Sportcoat walks out to the flagpole in the causeway and shoots a drug dealer named Deems in the head. And it starts this whole like long chain of events that ends up bringing in a bunch of different people. And it's kind of an interesting story with how everybody is tied together, but we get the perspectives of mainly the perspectives of Sportcoat, a detective, well, former detective who is now a police officer because he got demoted, named Potts, and a gangster, an Italian gangster referred to as the Elephant. And so this was definitely an interesting book, and I'm looking forward to us talking about it. Kat, was that synopsis pretty okay?
That was wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah, I think that we could also say that this was a little more literary when it comes to historical fiction too, don't you think?
Yeah,
More in the literary realm.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I'm excited to talk about this
Me
book with
too. The firm
you.
unite. And just going through and saying our hello to everybody. Happy to have you. All right, Jamie and Jasmine read it. Robert and Davon did not. And Davon says still the beginning of the school year, but interested. Awesome. Well, Kat and I have a feeling that we have very different opinions about this book. So depending on which person you believe is going to determine how much
I can always tell with Alex if she's not on the same page because I will say things in our text or communication like, I'm very excited, or this book is great, I'm loving it. And I get crickets from Alex.
I think
It's
I
yeah,
usually refer to it as
good discussion.
yeah, I was like, it'll be interesting to talk about. Yeah.
I
And
will. I also want to tell you that Catherine at Bay Books read it.
okay.
And remind me when we get to the like our whenever we do our ratings and everything. I just want to read what she said.
Okay. Well, we're getting ready to dive into that because that's really our next thing we're going to talk about. So go ahead if you want to, and
Okay, so
rating.
she said she finished and loved it. She's rating it 5 stars because I have no notes. It's a great story, well written, and universal.
Okay.
That was her. So she couldn't be here tonight, but she said she'll watch on replay just to see what happens. So I wanted to give Catherine a shout out. She, like me, likes character-driven stories. So I figured we would, include her rating as well.
Okay. Oh, I appreciate you including that. And Kat, I'm going to let you go first because I'm going to let mine rest second. So go ahead and let us know what you thought of Deacon King Kong.
5 stars.
5. It was a whole 5. Okay, well, that's good. I'm happy to hear that you gave it 5 stars. I'm always happy when people love a book. I mean, I think that's great. Do you want to
Uh-oh.
do you want to give like a brief couple notes about what your favorite things were before we get into it?
Well, first of all, I have to say I love James McBride's storytelling
Okay.
style. I like it. I like that this book, I was a little surprised that it had as much humor in it. I
Mm.
wasn't expecting it because of how serious the topics that we were going to be reading about. I
Mhm.
mean, I knew it's a work of fiction, but I just thought it might be a little heavy.
Mhm.
But I think he did really well with the humor. So I was very pleasantly surprised about that. But it's the characters. I love character driven stories. And this one had, in my opinion, amazing characters. I mean, quirky, colorful. Some of them you just didn't like, but others you just loved. I don't know. It's just perfect type of book for me. And also, too, I think knowing a little bit about James McBride's background and where he grew up, and I can see like that
Mhm.
filtering in the story as well. You know,
That's
so
fair
there's
because you have an
there's
advantage there.
authenticity to it, if that makes any sense. You know.
It does. I think you have an advantage there on me because I have not read anything else that he's written. I've not read the what was that? The Earth Good.
They have an Earth grocery store. I
Yeah,
haven't read
the
that
Earth
one yet
Grocery
either.
Store. I haven't read that. I haven't read his memoir, talking about his life. So this was my first experience with
Mhm.
his writing. And so talking about my review, I'm going to say just in advance that my review and my opinion of this book is deeply unpopular. And I recognize that. And not that I didn't. So here's the thing: I gave it 3 stars. I didn't hate it. Okay, I
I was
didn't
getting
hate
kind of
it.
worried.
No, no, no,
The way
no,
you were looking and everything, you were like,
no.
I was like, "Ooh, Alex has that. I'm going to break your heart look." Like
No,
it's
well,
gonna
I feel
be
like
a
a
2.
3 when you gave it a 5 might break your heart. Like, I do feel that way. I'm like, "Oh," because I feel like a lot of people, they really love this book. I mean, the average rating of it was so high, and that's why I know that my opinion is unpopular. The reason that I feel that way will become very apparent while we're discussing the book because it has to do more with, like, my personal background with like dealing with people similar to these characters
Mm,
than like James McBride's writing itself. And I would say that if my background was different, I probably would have liked it more.
mm.
So I know that sounds a little cryptic, but I promise that I'll explain. But yeah, so I give it a 3. It's not a book that I disliked. I didn't love it. I wouldn't reread it again. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it, but Kat, I'll also put it out there because we always say at the beginning, like maybe you'll change my mind. I'm really curious to hear your thoughts because maybe you'll make me raise my rating because we always
Well,
say our
and
rating.
also too, in all fairness to your rating, I think the way you can broach it about whether or not you would recommend a book or not, this is kind of how I feel about it. If you like XYZ, then this is the book for you.
Right.
If you don't like XYZ, you might want to pass on it,
Yes.
kind of thing.
Hmm. Absolutely. So we got a 4.25 in here. Stina said probably a 3.25 or 3.5. Okay, so close to mine. Jamie said a 4.25. So definitely like over the fours. Kat, the fact that you gave this like stellar makes me
Oh,
so
I love
happy for
it.
you because I think isn't that our first? That's your first 5 star of the books that we have read for our book club this year. Is that right?
I think so because I'm trying to think. Um, the winter one.
Yeah, the
Uh,
Winter People.
The Winter People, I think I
Mhm.
gave that one a 4.
Yeah, I was gonna
I
say I
don't think
haven't
I
given
gave
any a
Spell
5.
Shop a 5.
No,
I know I didn't give Chain Gang 5.
nope.
Yeah, so this is my first 5. I'm having an unusually odd year this year. I don't have as many 5 stars this year as I've had in the past, and a, quite a few of my 5 stars are rereads. So what does that tell you?
Well, you know what? But that's okay. I need to
Yeah,
go
I
back
mean,
and
it's
reread some
fine.
of
So
my
that's
favorites.
why between this and the middle grade March book that I finished, because I finished both of them yesterday, both were 5-star reads for me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Well, that's awesome. That makes me so happy. And I promise, like, nothing that I say, it's not going to be derogatory about your opinion. I'm never that way
Oh,
about
yeah, no, no,
somebody's
no.
opinion. So I'm excited to talk about it. And so this is the point when we're getting into spoilers, just to tell everybody. I think everybody here knows that by now. But I wanted to start off just by asking, do you feel that the Dust Jacket synopsis of the story is accurate? And how does the intro compare to the focus of the ending for you?
At first, I mean, I went back and I read it, and at first I was like, yes and no, but then I say yes. Although I didn't think the guy Deems lived. I don't know why I felt like he had been killed
Yes.
and
That was a
whatever.
reveal.
So
That was
look,
a surprise.
so
Yeah.
I went back and I read it again, and it nowhere says that it was a fatal shooting or anything. So I was like, okay, that was just me assuming.
No, it wasn't. The author was leading us. That was the point.
But I was glad he did live, because I think it made the story more interesting. I mean, because there was so much that had to do with the thug, and I wasn't expecting it. Already said this, to be so humorous with such serious topics, because the inside jacket seems very serious. It doesn't seem like it's supposed to be humorous.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that was my thinking on it, but I do feel like it set off, a chain of events for, everybody involved, everybody that was there, that was witnessed or knew them or whatever. And are we answering the second part of the question, or are you going to answer your part?
You can go ahead and answer. That's fine. Unless
Okay.
you'd like me to. Do you want to do it that way? You want me to?
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So I completely agree with you that, I thought that Deems died. I actually thought it was really interesting when he revealed that he, it wasn't dead all that time, because I was sitting there like, oh no, it was a failed murder. What's going to happen? And I will say, probably like the first, I don't know, 5 to 6 chapters of this book, I was very invested. Like, this was something that when I first started reading it, I actually handed it to Keaton, and he got really invested in the beginning. And he's like, wow, I really love this writing. And I did. Like, when I first started reading, I was like, oh, this writing's so cool. This is really interesting. And the more that the story went on, the more I kind of felt like it wasn't giving me what I hoped for, which will be answered more in my question I will ask after this. But do you want to talk about how that compared for you for the ending?
Well, I put that the intro came full circle with the ending for me, because at the beginning it says Deacon Cuffy Lampkin of Five Ends Baptist Church became a walking dead man on a cloudy September afternoon in 1969. It sets the story in motion, and we're going through and it's flowing, and then it completes Sportcoat's story by the end when he says it's beautiful, because he's already been to that harbor once before when we find out about Hetty.
Yeah.
And he says that about it being beautiful, but he's talking about the bird at that point. So to me, I felt like it made a full circle.
Yeah, I would agree that I think James McBride did bring everything around. I liked some of the comments that we got in here. Stina saying it's a kind of a story I appreciate, even if I didn't enjoy it all that much. Zach was saying he felt betrayed by the dust jacket. Jasmine said it also made it seem a little more fast paced. In my opinion, this was a bit slower of a read. I would have to agree that I felt like it slowed down a lot by the end. So it kind of jarred me a little bit when, you're getting to the last 2 chapters, you finish the second to last chapter and you get to the last one, and suddenly you have a 22-month skip ahead, and it's like, oh, by the way, Sportcoat died. And then they spend the rest of the chapter trying to figure out how it was that he died and what was going on with him during that time, and was he still drinking, and all of these things. And I I kind of felt like that like hit me over the head a little bit. That wasn't the way that I wanted that to end. And also just the fact that it was such a significant time jump. I mean, that's almost 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I don't think it was the most perfect ending of all endings, but I was glad about finding out what led up to it, that Sport Coat at least didn't give in. He was getting close, and that's why I think he knew it was time. I think he fulfilled his purpose. Oh, excuse me. Sucking on this cough drop. I think he fulfilled his purpose, and he fulfilled whatever his agreement was with Hetty. And the fact that it was kind of like a reminiscence, because we're getting G's conversation with hot sausage or whatever. I don't know. It wasn't the most perfect ending, but I was satisfied enough with it that of where he went and how he did it on his own terms, and he's with his Hetty.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so this will lead into my next question, which is what were your impressions of Sport Coat, Potts, and the elephant? Because they were our main people. We did get some perspectives here and there, like Sister G, got a perspective or two in there. But these three were our main people for most of the book.
Yeah. So Sport Coat, I mean, clearly is a drunk. I think he lacks responsibility, although his heart seems to be in the right place. I think he's given a lot of passes by a lot of people, including Hetty, even though when you get down to it, he's just not responsible. I do think he has a compassionate heart, though. The baseball team, for example, he knew that was important for his youth. The gardening, he was really good at it, and he seemed to be able to have a good relationship with the elephant's mother. I just think his sense of responsibility to Hetty and the church, like him being concerned about the Christmas money and all that kind of stuff, I think all that drinking added to him to not be responsible. It's sort of like, okay, well, I'm drunk and I'm not of my right mind or whatever. So people are going to just give me a pass, so he's flawed. I mean, pretty flawed, I think, but I liked him. I liked his kooky kind of character. I like that, he shoots Deems and doesn't even realize he did it. And he thinks everybody's making up a story about it, which I'm like, clearly when you found the gun in your pocket, like that should have jarred you. But it was sort of like, oh, I had a gun in my pocket. I wonder what this is doing here kind of thing. So I don't know. I mean, I think it just took him a long time to realize that he did Hetty kind of wrong by not being more attentive to her and her needs and all that she carried. Like, it was sad to me that Hetty had to die for him to realize that, because the community, it was such a loss even for the community and for him, and how much she had done for everybody. Yeah. So I don't know. A part of me thinks that he drank so he could avoid whatever his past was in the South. It did not seem like a good upbringing just from the bits and pieces we got. And so I think that's where it started. And I think he was fine with letting Hetty just take care of him and letting him do his own thing. But I don't know. I kind of liked him. What are your thoughts about Sport Coat?
You want me to start with?
Oh, you want to take turns?
We can take turns if you like.
Instead of me just talking.
Blah, blah. No, you're good. I like hearing you talk, Kat. That's why we're doing a book club. So this is where it's going to start getting a little personal about why I didn't enjoy this book very much. Sport Coat bothered me immensely with his alcoholism. So I come from a background, many people in my family are alcoholics. I have people in my family who have died from their bad habits, people that they do things when they're drunk that are like violent or malicious or just in bad spirit, and they don't know that they're doing it because they're drunk, or they don't care that they're doing it because they're drunk. And at the beginning of the book, when you realize that, he's he's walking around and he's just shit-faced, you're like, oh, okay, like maybe he shot Deems and something's going to come of that where he's going to be reformed and he's going to be a better person, or we're going to find out something about him that's going to be very compelling. I personally did not find Sportcoat to be a compelling character. I found him to be a drunk. He was, I agree, deeply flawed, but he was flawed in such a way where, like, in some instances, I would agree with you that maybe his intentions were good. Like the fact that, he was worried about the Christmas money and everybody knew that he never would have stolen it because, like, that's just not the type of person that he was, which is great. But in the same vein, in the first few chapters that we see him, he's going to a job where he steals liquor from the store owner that he's working from.
Right.
Yeah, so he's not, I'm not going to say that he's a bad person, but I wouldn't argue that he's a moral person either. I think he's selfish, and I think that he did things to suit him, and he was not good to his wife. He was not a good father. By the time we get to the end of the book and he's like, well, I can't take care of my son. Basically, he was like, he was never really my son to begin with. I mean, Hetty couldn't, have a child, and she found him when she came up here. So really, that's just Hetty's child, and I'm going to give him to the cousins to take care of him because I can't do it. I mean, good on him for recognizing that he can't, but in the same vein, like, what a coward of a man.
Right.
And I did not like him at all. It's not that I hated him. I didn't think he was a villain, but he wasn't a good person.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely was flawed. And then when you think about some of the things that he did, there was always some kind of an agenda to make sure that he was taken care of. Like, I think about when the elephant was going to give him $100 and he didn't want to take it. I think he didn't want to take it because he didn't want to be held responsible or have any kind of a relationship to where it could come back on him to do that. I think a very telling moment is when Deems is screaming at him in the hospital room and calling him Deacon King Kong, and
I loved
basically
that.
cussing him out or whatever. And he keeps
Yeah.
saying, your words don't hurt me. Your words don't hurt me. But yet I think they did hurt him because at that point he is sober. So he's hearing a lot of what he would not have heard. You know what I'm saying? I think people gave him a pass because that's just Deacon King Kong. That's just him. That's just his way, whatever. I liked him, but I mean, he wasn't my favorite character. I don't want you to think that, but I think I liked him because he was a flawed character. He was not perfect. That you're seeing a person that could have some compassion, but like you said, I didn't even think about it, that maybe his compassion is when it suited him. Like, really, I think to myself, why was it so important for him with the baseball? I wish we would know a little more about that. But I think he buried himself in the alcohol because he didn't want to ever face whatever he lost in the South. I don't know. Lots of missed opportunities for him.
Yeah, and that's something that we'll talk about later.
When we get to that point about it.
Because that goes into another question that I have later, but I just, from the fact that this entire from the fact that this entire story is based off of it's based off of the choice of an alcoholic who couldn't even remember what he did, and that sets everything in motion, and it's kind of a wild story in the sense that, like, everything starts out with him and then he becomes like one of the least important people in the whole book. Like, he really does, in my opinion. I don't think Sportcoat is really like the glue holding the story together. He's the person that we come back to see.
Well, he's the catalyst. He's the catalyst of the story.
Yes.
He's the catalyst that sets everything into motion and affects all of these people because of this event. So yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I mean, even though he's at the beginning, at the end, and he's like a character that runs through or whatever, it's almost like he's there so that the other people around him can make the decisions that they need to make for themselves because of that one event that happens.
Right. It's going to happen to me too. It's
And
okay.
it's going to be Luna will be next.
So
First
do
it
you,
was
do you want to tell me what do you think
about
of
Potts. Okay, now Potts, I loved Potts. I just he was honest. He was lonely. He was trying to make it to retirement because all he wanted to do was fish. He doesn't really have much aspiration except for fishing until I think he meets,
Sister G?
Sister G. And
Yep.
then it's sort of like, okay, maybe I do have a purpose. He wants to do the right thing for the community to the point that he is a detective and gets demoted because he doesn't want to be a dirty cop. So, and I just love that. I love that he was part of this community. His experience was very much different than, Sister G's experience just because of their backgrounds. But he just seemed to me a character that just wanted to do the right thing, and it was very hard for him to do the right thing. It was very hard for him. He did it, but it was still hard because he just wasn't given that level of respect on the police force because he wasn't going to be a dirty cop, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I loved Potts.
So Potts was definitely one of my favorite parts of the story. I would have to agree with that. I thought he was compelling. I always love a story where you have a good cop, like somebody who just wants to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do.
Mhm.
Um, he is flawed in multiple ways as well, though. There's the fact that he meets Sister G and he automatically just starts thinking about how he could just leave his wife. And like he's like rearing and ready to go by the end of that book to just be like, I'm ready to start a completely new life where this other woman's gonna take care of me. And he goes and he meets the elephant at the dock, and they're talking, and Potts just keeps thinking about like, well, I can't get embroiled or in anything, otherwise I'm not going to get my pension. And it's like, okay, well, now you're not really sounding like the good cop. Now you just sound like you're somebody who's just trying to get through his last case to not be there anymore.
Right.
And so that's kind of another example of something of what I meant when I said, like, the longer that the story goes on, the less it became what I thought it was going to
Well,
be.
I think also too, the longer the story went on, you were really finding out more about these people.
Yeah, and as happens so often, they okay, this is gonna be my biggest compliment I could give. They feel like real people. Okay, because the more
Yes.
you meet people, the more you realize how truly flawed they are, and however you see them on the outside, it's not typically like how they are on the inside. I do think that James McBride did a good job of making them feel like real people, which is one of the reasons why, like, I wouldn't say that I dislike this book, because I think that part of it was well done, even if I don't like the people. One of the
Right.
things I enjoy about Storygraph is, one of the questions it always asks when you leave a review is, did you find the characters lovable? And myself and 22% of the other people were like, no, because they're not, the more that you get to kind of understand their
Mhm.
mentality,
Mhm. Mhm.
which leads into, oh, go ahead. Go
Well,
ahead.
and I'm also wondering too, the time period. How much of that is an influence on some of the attitudes that these people have too?
Mhm. And I think Jamie
Yeah.
makes a good point. He was
Mhm.
beaten down and it feels like you never really made a difference. He kind of looks back on his career. He always talks about, like, or at least towards the end of the book, he's talking about how things have changed so much. He's like, all the
Mhm.
old lushes and the people who used to make my job kind of funny and bemusing at times, like all the kids that used to play their terrible trombone music, and stuff like that. Like, they're all gone and now it's just replaced by drugs. And
Yeah, I kind of feel like Jamie. I
yeah.
do. I feel like he was to the point that, like, he wasn't going to get the support he needed to get. A perfect example of that is like when he first got on the force, he had the energy, life was different. You didn't have these societal issues that were going on. It's sort of like teaching was like that for me.
Mhm.
When I first started teaching, very different situation to what we have now, and it's like, it's amazing that you wouldn't think that it could change so drastically in that amount of time, kind of thing. So I kind of that's the best example I can give of when you're in a situation that you've been in something for long enough that you can see how it was at the very beginning compared to where you're at the end of your career, kind of thing. In all fairness to Potts's wife, we have no idea what kind of a woman she is because we get very brief snippets or
we only have one reference to her.
yeah.
It's
So
only
we don't know, she just doesn't. I don't know how they met or whatever. So we don't know if it was like a matter of a marriage of convenience or marriage because of families or, getting together, or was it love at first sight? And it just kind of, we
No,
get
it
more of
wasn't.
Sister G's situation,
Her
which
crappy
makes you
husband.
realize, well, I
Yeah.
can kind of see why she's not as invested in her marriage, and why she just kind of stays, kind of thing, because she doesn't have the options.
I wish that both of them had gotten a divorce. Like, at least with Potts, I was like, good. He got a divorce. He wants to be with this woman. Like, I can applaud that because he's not cheating. It's like, thank you. You're not cheating.
Well, but are we sure that she didn't get a divorce?
Well, yes, because it does say at the end, talking about Sport Coat's his funeral, and it's referring to the pastor and how she has to like cover her face while she's on the boat because she doesn't want anybody to see her because like word will travel.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
she was doing
I
it.
I kind of thought she was doing that just because she was out of her element.
I mean, I could be
That's
wrong.
how I
Unless I
interpreted
missed
it. I
something,
just
but
thought, well, maybe she left him, or maybe she got sick of him, because he was not a good husband to her.
no, he wanted to cheat
Mm.
with the younger women.
Oh yeah.
So that was the thing. It started out at the beginning of the book when we first are introduced to him, because he's not an important person in the book at all, but when we're introduced to him, he's talking about how he got in trouble because he was trying to preach the good word to a woman with very large breasts in a bar somewhere,
Yes.
like that kind of joke. um but I mean, I don't know if somebody wants to double check on that, but I got the implication that they were still married because she's still part of the church and he's still the reverend. I mean, usually if a split like that happens, you're not staying in your church after
I mean, and I could be wrong. I just took it that maybe she was not in her element. Not that Sister G thought that she'd be recognized. Who from the cause house ever took the Staten Island ferry? Nobody she knew, but you never know. Half the people in the cause she remembered seemed to work for transit. If anybody saw her, she'd have a hard time explaining why she was on the boat. You
Yep.
can't be too careful.
Yep. She was doing it secretly.
Yeah, so I was just assuming, considering that she was going to him, I was assuming it was just that she was out of her element going in an area that would have been very obvious that she didn't belong there. That's how I took it. So
Okay.
obviously I missed the boat. I missed the boat. I missed the ferry on that one.
What did you think of the elephant?
Okay, I also like the elephant, even though he's a bad guy. I don't know why. I mean, I know he is a bad guy, but and I know what he did was wrong. He's stealing. I get that, but it's almost like he had his own little moral code,
Yep.
despite being a gangster. Like,
Yep.
I'm gonna go and steal TVs, but I'm not doing the drug stuff because the drug stuff is like harming people even worse than like his. I mean, I guess I mean, they're both bad, but the consequences of what the elephant was doing is very different from the consequences of what the drugs were doing.
Yep. Yep.
And again, he's also another lonely guy. He longs for something more. I think he was brought into this business because of his father. I don't know if it's necessarily something he really wanted to do. He seemed bored with doing this job, but it's like, I think he had a lot of pressure of having to continue doing it. But like, he had dreams, like he talked about even before he meets Melissa, about how he'd like to be out in the country somewhere and doing his own little thing without being involved in this. but it's kind
Yeah.
of hard to walk away.
Yeah.
Here, Major.
I
I love him, Elefante.
Yeah, I know. I thought that was cute. Elefante the elephant. I kept saying that in my head while I was reading it.
So I don't know. I mean, I did like him. I liked him in
Yeah.
Potts because I just felt like they, in different circumstances, they would be different people.
Okay. That I could see that. With Elefante, I also liked him. I hate to Sportcoat was my least favorite character. I'm sorry, he really was, for my personal reasons. So I will say this: I have a soft spot for mob movies, like Goodfellas, Casino, all that stuff. I love it. However, I recognize these are bad people doing bad things. So while I was reading it, he's murdered people. He is stealing things. He's like going under the cops' noses. He's like greased some palms, as it were. Like he's still doing all of the things that mobsters typically do. He's just old mob. That's really what it felt like. Is like he's not. So what I loved in this book is him talking about how like, oh well, we're just the filthy Genoans, like we're not from Sicily, because like they're not allowed to be like the made people, right? Like they're
Right.
just the other Italians, but
Right.
they still needed to make their money and do their business in the way that a lot of Italians did back then. And he was following in the code of his dad. I do like the fact that he did have like a sense of duty about things. Like he wanted to honor his father. When he ends up meeting the governor, like he ended up wanting to help this man that he'd never met. Now, keep in mind, he made a lot of money off of it and he was benefiting from it. But he's like kind of this sad sack of like, I'm 40 years old and I've never been loved. And when he sits in his car and he says like, I just want somebody to love me, you're just like, oh, come on. Like
In his
this is so
ill-fitting suit.
sad. Yeah. And you're like, oh man. And
But
so
he also had a kind heart. I mean, I mean, even though they had the race, issues, and everybody had their place in the community, he still wanted to make sure that Hetty was respected when they
yes.
found her and that they did good by her.
Yeah.
And even though he knew his mom, he didn't want Sportcoat at the time. He didn't know who Sportcoat was, but he told his mom he shouldn't be in the house and all that stuff or whatever. It's sort of like he trusted his mom enough to make a good decision. But if you think about it, all of the characters we were getting from, with the exception of Deems and his group, you were seeing old school meeting new school, I guess, and how much of a difference people were with how they handled their business.
Yeah, I agree that I think he also had a good heart. I think he had good intentions. He just kind of had that quiet rage. And Jamie saying that what he did for Hetty sealed him as a good character. I think the fact that he loved his mom so much, like that also, my thing with him is you could really tell what kind of reputation he had by the fact that Joe Peck was terrified of him.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because when Joe Peck came into the scene, I'm like, oh God, it's this crazy guy. Like he's going to make the elephant's life a nightmare. That's really what I thought. Elephant had him nailed. Like he was the more terrifying of the two people in that room. And you're like, okay, well, he got that reputation for a good reason. So it's not so the elephant is one of those people that's like, I would feel like a hypocrite to be like, oh, well, Sportcoat's a bad guy because, he's a drunk, but, the elephant murdered people and that's fine. Like, no, that's not what I'm saying. Like, I think that, everybody in this book is deeply flawed. And, Elephant talking about how, like, the people that he hurt, like the people he killed, kept him up, waking up in a cold sweat at night. It's like, okay, he feels bad. Sportcoat feels terrible at the end of the book for what he did, like, and the way that he treated his wife. Potts is like trying to kind of come to terms with his feelings about his career and like what is ahead of him in his life now that, this isn't going to be what he's going to do anymore. And like he's heading into retirement. And so it's like none of them are great in like a perfect sense, but there are glimpses of them that are good. And I
Well,
like
do you think
they
that this was an opportunity for all of them to seek redemption?
I
Who's
think they
gonna
were
be
seeking it.
successful at it and who's not based on their personalities. I
Yeah.
think Sport Coat wouldn't have made the decision that he made. I think he would have gone back to being a full-time drunk. It
Yeah.
had taken over his life to the point that he was just gonna basically drink himself to death,
Yeah.
um, in that situation.
Yeah.
Whereas Potts still has an opportunity, whether it works out with Sister G or not,
Mhm.
he still has an opportunity to live the remainder of his life doing things that he wants to do. I could see Potts like going into the community and doing something for the community,
Yeah.
because he
Oh,
cared
absolutely.
about the community.
I think the elephant would too. That's
Yes,
the thing, like, he
exactly.
he did. I mean, he did. He gave money to the church, like, and the fact he got out of the business and he went to go make bagels, because he fell in love, and, he didn't want to hurt people, and I think that's the thing about the elephant that I can respect is, like, he genuinely wanted out of the business, unlike mobsters that are only in it, like, for the money or what can benefit them, and he's like, "No, I actually want to, like, have a life with my wife and just, like, have a good life." And he, talks about how, it's Melissa, right? Marissa?
Yes,
Melissa.
Melissa.
Melissa, yeah, how like she's so sweet with her, clients and knows how to talk to her people, and he just like respects her so much for that. And it's like, okay, that's cute. And I
Well,
and I
it is like the
see
whole
that
thing
again,
about
he
the
got
fact
out.
that she walked in when she was barefoot.
Yeah,
Like
barefoot
that
and
just was
popping.
like,
Yeah.
just thrilled him to see, that she was in there barefoot, because it wasn't like Melissa was putting on airs or trying to impress anybody. She
Nope.
was who she was and
Mhm.
exactly what he was looking for in a woman.
Mhm.
And same thing with the way Potts was attracted to Sister G. Like I love the part with them two when they kind of have a little fight
Mhm.
and he walks away and she makes a comment, but
Which are crying.
he's kind of talking over his shoulder, and they're having it back and forth because they know what they're doing is not going to be socially acceptable, but they're both in a situation that they're like they want to give in to themselves
Mhm.
because for so long they're doing everything for everybody else.
Yeah. Mhm. I
So
agree. We agree on that, Kat. We completely agree. Um, and I will have us move on to the next question because I know we spent a lot of time talking about this one, but it's good because now we have the setup for all the rest of everything.
yeah.
So my next question, why is that? Hang on, sorry, I made it scroll. That's wrong. There is a repetition of two characters from different backgrounds meeting and thinking they're trapped like me when looking at another person. So, what do you think is the significance of this phrase and trapped how?
And I'm assuming we're talking about Sister G and Potts. That's who I
It was mentioned in a couple different places in the book with different
okay.
characters, but you can talk about, yeah, they were some of them.
Well, because there was a part where she says she realized, as trapped as she was. And I think the two of them were trapped by their societal circumstances, which is a physical entrapment. They
Mhm,
know what their place is and they don't cross the line and they do what they're supposed to do so that they don't make waves. But
mhm,
then also they're emotionally trapped because both of them are in a loveless marriage.
yep,
And again, they're in that marriage and they feel trapped because there's no other alternative. I mean, it wasn't very popular back then for people just to get divorced. And
mhm,
then I would say, considering having to support themselves, like women couldn't just walk away, you
mhm.
know, and live their life or whatever. It's not like I think the pastor would have had a whole lot to help her out anyway. So that's who I was thinking mainly about being trapped was the two of them.
Mhm. I agree with you. I do think that they're trapped by. I think they're trapped by social class. I think they're trapped by racial expectations. I think they're trapped by the the city even that they live in. You know, they talk about like they talk about how things are different even from street to street, and
Mhm.
how, you know, back in the day, Sister Paul was talking about like the street you didn't go down because you'd be harassed by the Italians, you know, like even the Italians were trapped in a way because they all moved there to work the docks, and then those jobs went away, and, you know, other groups moved in to take over the space. And it just, you know, things are constantly changing and constantly fluctuating, but in that there are also some things that stay the same.
Mhm.
Like the certain parts of, you know, New York that were poor then are probably still poor now. Like there are just some things that don't change with time.
Right. Right.
So I think that yes, they're trapped in that way. I believe, because there was a couple different characters who said that. I think it might have been Deems and Sportcoat as well. Like one of them looked at the other and thought that. But I honestly, I'm sorry, I'm struggling. I can't remember which one it was, but it felt to me like a lot of them, they were looking at their circumstance and feeling like there was no way that they could change their life for the
Mhm.
better, and they just had to accept the hand that they were dealt, versus where I think the end of the book, they no longer feel that entrapment. It's like it's kind of like people took control of their lives. Like Pot, it's like, okay, I'm going to get a divorce and I'm going to chase this woman that I love. Sister G is going to have a tryst because she wants to see if there's any opportunity, you know, to be with this man. Deems ends up, you know, putting away the drugs, and he goes to play minor league baseball in the hopes that he's going to go pro. You know, Sportcoat's no longer trapped by his alcoholism because he's decided to beat that habit. Well, he is trapped by his alcoholism, but he decides to like take control of it, because once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. You know, he recognizes that too at the end of the book when he's like, I so badly want to drink this, and I know given enough time I will.
Well, and I'm just wondering too if that's why he pushed so much for the baseball and for Deems, because he saw that he had talent. He saw that he would be trapped here in these circumstances, and either he was going to continue to do this job,
Mhm.
which is just going to make him harder and harder as a person, and
Mhm.
he's going to lose himself totally, or he's going to get killed. One of the other is going to happen. And I think that's why he was pushing it so much, because like you can get out of your trap,
Mhm.
because I think Deems felt like he was trapped in his circumstances. I don't think he could see the bigger picture because, you know, being young and having people flashing cash at you and then
Mhm.
trying to give you some kind of power, because he felt powerless in his family. I mean, once his grandfather died,
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
his brother was a drunk.
yeah, I mean,
It's
so who did he have? And it's almost like they forget, like he almost forgot all the stuff that Sportcoat had done for him as his Sunday school teacher, and as because everything else was more appealing,
Mhm.
because it's like, look, if you have all this money, you can drive this fancy car, you can have
Firebird.
all this stuff. Why are you going to spend all this time physically trying to be a baseball player and you might or might not make it, you know? Let's remember where you live and who you are, you know, kind of thing.
Yep.
And it's all about making those decisions.
Yeah, I agree. And I really do. That's one of the things I do like about the story is, you know, if everybody starts out in the beginning feeling trapped, but by the end they have found the way to set themselves free. That I think is a really nice message. You know, it's like you can take control of your life. You might feel powerless, but there are things that you can do for yourself. You know,
Mhm.
not everybody's going to become a minor league baseball player, you know, but like there are things that you can do to better your life. And I thought that that was nice. What did you think of Sportcoat's nickname Deacon King Kong before you read the book versus after? You already know my feeling after, but I didn't tell you what it
Well,
was
I
before.
thought Deacon King Kong was going to be a force to be reckoned with, like this strong personality, because I'm thinking of King Kong the monster,
Right.
okay? With lots of
Exactly.
power in the church community. And he was just like one of these people that, you know, like you just don't mess with Deacon King Kong because he's going to take you out, kind of thing. And then
Yep.
I realized that King Kong was the booze
Yep.
that Sportcoat consumes. So it was his nickname. Like he's a drunk,
He's a drunk.
and it's like King Kong is so powerful, the booze is so powerful that it took him, it consumed him.
Yeah.
And I loved that Deems threw that in his face over and over. on page 318.
I was laughing at that rant. Like, I was like, give it to him, Deems. Because I was so,
I mean, the language, I was like, oh my gosh, this language. But it was just, him saying, don't you ever get tired of hearing yourself talk? Deacon King Kong. It's like trying to explain, like, that was not like an affectionate name.
No.
And then he says it again. What kind of business you got in this hospital, sport? They make your grape here. You're King Kong. You and your drink, Deacon King Kong. That's what they call you. And it was like he just kept emphasizing it, that you don't want to be named that.
No, that's why I was so disappointed when I started reading and I realized like that was the character that he was going to be, is because I also thought that too. I'm like, a book titled Deacon King Kong, he's got to be a bad motherfucker walking up, or, there is like a Samuel L. Jackson type, he's going to shoot people in the face if you're a drug dealer in his district, it's like,
Right.
oh, that's going to be interesting. And that's just not what it was.
Well, it's almost like this play on words, it's almost like, does King Kong make you feel like you are powerful? Because
I don't even think it was.
I don't even know. Because
I think it was ironic. I mean, it's an ironic name.
It's ironic. I do think that. But then I thought it was kind of funny that Sport Coat gave Deems pillow therapy. I'm like, really? Pillow therapy in this book?
Yeah, I was like, holy crap. Jamie saying that Sport Coat's push for baseball was to bring some respect to the neighborhood. And I'm like, I agree with that.
Yeah, I do too.
Reading it, title totally made me think of Denzel Washington and Training Day. King
Kong,
got nothing on me. Boy, was that wrong. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like the description on the back. Like the description on the back, I didn't that either. I thought it was oh yeah, I did also think that it was misleading in that way. Sam, yeah, Dave, I'm laughing. I love that quote. Everybody loves that quote from Samuel L. Jackson from Pulp Fiction. It's the one that says "bad motherfucker." Like, you can't love it. Oh, yeah. So we were talking about that, so I might as well bring that up here. Sport Coat nearly kills Deems twice, once in a drunken stupor and once while attempting to be sober. Do you think Sport Coat hated Deems for his choices?
Well, I don't think that Sport Coat hated Deems for his choices as much as he hated Deems's choices.
Okay.
Maybe Deems reminded Sport Coat of himself, and he didn't want Deems to end up like him or worse, dead. Deems represented talent in a future, but also a lost opportunity. Yep. So whatever Sport Coat could have had in his youth and did not get, I think he recognized it in Deems.
Yeah.
And when he realized that Deems had a talent, that he could be something better than what he was, I think he was recognizing, I don't want you to be a fool like me and waste your opportunity.
Yeah. I think that he was disgusted with Deems, and that manifested in a couple different ways. Like in the beginning, when it's, him shooting him in a drunken stupor and he doesn't even remember it and he doesn't know why he ever would. And he's just talking about Deems being good at baseball. It's like, okay, there must be some like deep psychological, like subconscious thing that he thinks about Deems that brought forward that, because in his mind, he had to have a reason to pull that gun, right? And the conversation of where he tried to kill him started the same both times. Both times Sport Coat walked up to him and was really calm and was trying to talk about baseball. And both times Deems was shooing him away, being like, get the heck out of here, old man. And both times Sport Coat nearly killed him for it. And it's like, okay.
Well, it does. It said, I even asked the question, does Sport Coat shooting Deems wake Deems up? It's too late for Sport Coat, but not too late for Deems. It's almost as if Sport Coat was trying to drive out the demon that had taken a hold of Deems. So he kind of does it a little bit when he shoots his ear off. Basically, he makes some decisions. Okay, I'm gonna still sell drugs, but I'm not going to sell drugs. I'm going to have a little moral code about who I'm selling the drugs to.
Right.
And then he almost dies again. Okay, so 2 times he almost gets killed because of the doc situation.
Yep.
And then here comes Deems, here he comes in the hospital room. And at first, Deems is going to fight him. But then it's like, I think he drove the demon totally out of him at that
Yeah,
point
I
with the
I
pillow
I
therapy.
I think when he was finally sober, and I mean he didn't even remember, like both times he didn't remember what he said to Deems. He like, he was fighting the sickness that is alcoholism, and withdrawal, right? So he goes and he's trying to be nice, and then he nearly suffocates Deems with a pillow, and this entire time he's very calmly explaining to him, like, this is what my dad used to do in order to keep me under his thumb, because he didn't like it that I had a brain, and he didn't like it that I could be somebody other than the person he wanted me to be. So he wanted me to know how powerful he was, right? And he's like going on this monologue, and he takes the pillow off, and he basically calls Deems like, you're just a waste, like, don't ever come around me again, or basically I'll kill you where you stand. Like, I never want to see you again. And he doesn't remember that, and obviously that doesn't happen. But there's something in that I don't know if he like scared Deems so bad that Deems was like, I got to get out of the cause because like I'm just going to be killed, or if he like, because we don't see the reflection on
Also,
that at
too,
all.
this crazy old man.
Who's like nearly gotten me killed 3 times. Yeah, and so it's like we don't get to watch him process any of that information. All we get to see is like he did make a decision. He decided to go to college. He moved out of the cause to go live with his coach for a year. Now he's in the minor leagues. He has a chance to go to the major leagues. Sport coach making a joke about how like, see, I told you that bullet he took in the arm wouldn't affect it. Or no, it was his ear. He's like, I told you he could still pitch with a shot off ear, and stuff like that. And it's like, okay. But we didn't really get to watch that development. We only get to see, we do get to see that Deacon King Kong sport coat meant a lot to Deems, because Deems kept saying in the book, he's like, the only reason I'm putting up with this is because it's sport coat. The only reason I'm putting up with this is because sport coat was my grandfather's best friend, and it's in respect to my grandfather, which also says a lot about him, because like he cared about that, kind of thing. So I mean, he was able to make it out. And I thought that was good. I mean, I'm happy for him that he did. I didn't want him to die a drug dealer.
I didn't either. No.
Yeah. I'm happy that the guy who sold him the drugs died.
Oh,
He got shot down by
I was
Bill
cheering, and I was like,
yes, because I hated that guy.
I hated him so much, especially when we find out about Harold Dean. I was like,
yeah.
you're like this. You're like worse than the scum of the earth.
Yes.
You're like below scum of the earth, whatever that would be.
Yes. If you want, I can actually jump forward a little bit, because since you brought up Harold Dean, what was the purpose of the arc of Harold Dean, and do you think she had a fitting conclusion?
I put Harold Dean was a total surprise for me. I was not expecting a woman, for one thing. I think her arc could work as a way of not underestimating the women in the story and their roles in the community. I was fine with her conclusion. She took out a really bad guy that didn't think he could be touched, and I loved it. It kind of reminded me of Smokin' Aces, that movie Smokin' Aces.
I've never seen
everybody, oh my gosh, it's a person's got a hit, and it's all these like hit people coming out. It's almost like a John Wick where you got a price on your head or whatever it is. They just people coming out the woodwork, and you can't trust anyone. That's how it felt to me. But Potts makes the point to Sister G in here. This is on page 216.
You're so good. You got your pages and your quotes.
Well, because I wrote all my stuff out. I was a good girl. It said, you know what that means, organized crime. That's why they call it organized. Guys like him have legitimate businesses mixed with illegitimate ones. He's not just one guy. He's an operator. He's got employees working for him. He runs a factory, and then he just goes on to explain basically that it doesn't matter who they have in place. There's someone else is going to take their spot. And I think Bunch, he thought he would not ever get touched. I mean, he was going to try to screw over Peck and everybody. But the point of it, and this is where I think Haroldine was so amazing, is that she understood that there is always someone that's going to replace a bad guy.
Yeah.
Always someone. And they're all expendable. And I love that Haroldine got revenge because Bunch was a horrible person. And when we find out what he did to Haroldine,
Yeah.
and just the disrespect and treating her like trash and her mom and all that stuff like that makes my blood boil. And
Yeah.
so I mean, I know he probably got shot up and his body was probably be thrown all the way, and I could just envision it.
Slow-mo.
Oh my
Yeah.
God, it's like Smoking Aces. It's so good.
Yeah. For people who didn't read it, Bunch basically sexually assaulted Haroldine when she was 14 years old. Like he made her have sex with him and made her mother have sex with him in exchange for like trying to give, quote unquote, give them a better life. And her mother was always like, oh, well, Bunch saved us. He brought us up. And Haroldine was like, no, he didn't. And so she ends up becoming a killer for hire. That's
Right.
so Haroldine is known in the beginning of the book as Harold Dean. It's a misdirection because everybody thinks that Harold Dean is a man. And
Right.
Sport Code is like, no, you fool, Harold Dean is a girl's name. And after Deems nearly gets murdered by her because she's a hit woman, right? And so the thing about her conclusion that I thought was a little odd. So there was like a part of it I liked and there was a part of it I didn't. The part of it that I didn't like was that she is a hit woman and supposedly, you know, she wants to take out anybody who saw her. And so like we never see her actually like complete her job, right? Like she takes
Right.
half the money and she runs. But the part that I like is that the reason she took half the money and ran was because she wanted to get out. She was like, I'm going to college. I'm going to go be
Right.
an accountant.
Right.
Bunch is like, you're never going to make any money doing that. But that's what she wanted to do. She was determined to do that. And we never saw her again. She got out, she got her money. Presumably she went to school, right?
Well, my thing too is Haroldine also showed the nature of the drug business. Like
Yes.
the nasty side of the drug business, and that no matter who you are, how powerful, you're not safe, whether you think that or not. I thought it was so. The other thing that was so great too was the fact that Bunch was at his safe house. Nobody knew where he was, you know, or whatever. And it's like, oh, it was just great. It was like the best revenge.
Yeah, I like what Zach says here. I liked her. She weaponized everything she could to escape, period, instead of letting the system be weaponized against her. And yeah, she was the most take control lady of the whole book because she's like, oh no, because, you know, it's sad because Bunch describes her as being like this cold beauty. And it's like, yeah, she had a horrible life. She's talking about the way that the women who are with these drug dealers treat them. How like
I know. It was just
push-ups
awful.
over dog poop until they're so tired that they just fall into it because
And then they laugh.
Yeah, and or like how many men that they're expected to sleep with in order to be able to get their fix. You know, it's awful and it's really ugly, and you can understand why she's sick of it. And then you feel, even though she is a murderer and she did do bad things, again, it's just like the elephant. It's like she wants to get out. She doesn't want that life for herself.
No.
She's not going to have to pay for any of it. That's the thing. There are no consequences for anybody in the book, just in case you're wondering. Like, there's one person. Is it one person who dies? It was James's buddy Beanie. And yeah, and I'm like, Beanie wasn't even like, he was just, what's the word I'm looking for? Collateral damage.
Right.
You know, but like really,
well, because Haroldine wasn't expecting two old dudes to come and have this like, weird little.
Yes, absolutely. So it's just it's weird in the sense that there are no repercussions in this book. Not really.
That's the fantastical, whimsical part of the book.
Yeah, absolutely. So were you engaged with the story throughout, or did you find it meandering at times or slow?
I was engaged throughout. It definitely was a slow burn, but I also thought it was thought-provoking, at least for me. The characters had depth. I was truly interested in them. I thought they were colorful. I thought they were quirky. I thought their interconnectedness with one another. I really liked their relationships with one another. I liked, I don't know. I loved the mysteries. There were several different mysteries running through it. Some resolved, some not. Um, I did. I did. I don't mind a slow burn if I feel like the payoff. I get a payoff at the end, and I felt that I was okay. I was satisfied enough with the ending.
That's
The
fair.
journey. The
That's
journey.
fair. Also, I do want to make an amendment to my previous statement because yeah, duh, we were just talking about how Bunch was killed. So yes, there were two people. So Bunch was justifiably murdered, and Beanie was the collateral damage. So
Oh, and
Bunch was
also
the
there we
only.
did have the guy who got run over by the truck that got killed.
But that was so long ago. That was so. That doesn't mean anything. Bunch is the only one that pays for his mistake. So at least we got one person. It's like good because
Yeah, he was the
everybody.
best. He was the best death ever.
Yeah. JB saying Bunch was like one of the three stooges. How many times did he get taken out by people weaker than him? And then Stina says, I spent most of the book wondering what the heck anything had to do with anything else. That's fair. Zach said, I thought it was too long. That's why I only got 4.25. I would have done without stuff like the ants and the cheese. We're going to get to the cheese.
Yeah.
But so the thing that I would have thought would have made the story better is if I hate to say that we should have cut out some of the plot lines because again, the elephant and Potts were like two of my favorite parts of the book, but I wish that Sportcoat's part in the story had felt more meaningful instead of him just kind of wandering around doing random things
Yeah.
during his parts.
I
Because
mean,
that's
I
what
agree. It probably could have been tightened up in some spots.
yeah.
I think part of the reason why I think it felt long too, in some parts, maybe to some people, is that you had a very large cast of characters.
It was
And so, in order to get to know any of them, you had to have little plot lines and things surrounding them for you to feel like that they were more than just a cardboard character. you know um I think probably, if anything, and I guess because he took on a whole community to be in his story, and when you have a community that large, of course you can have a lot of characters, right?
Mhm.
I think probably his focus probably could have been kept maybe with just the people at the church or something like that. If I had to have a criticism, to
Mhm.
where you could have tightened it up a little bit. So, like Zach's saying, I don't necessarily think we had to have anything about the ants, or, I mean, although the ants was a signal to them of what was coming, or, you know, like a rite of passage or a seasonal thing or whatever. But I
That
don't think it was
yeah.
necessarily something that had to be a whole chapter about. You know
No.
what I'm saying? And
Yeah,
then the cheese thing, especially since the cheese thing isn't resolved really, I don't know if that necessarily had to be like, you had the two different things. You had the Christmas box and then you had the cheese. Like, I don't think as much attention had to be to the cheese for it to necessarily, like, I think if we didn't have the whole thing surrounding the cheese, I don't think it would have taken anything away from the story. And
I
I think
agree. Yeah, I agree because I personally did think that it was slow. It started out so surefire, and I was like, "Oh, this is really good," and then it just kind of slowed way down. So and I'm sorry, I'm going out of order, Kat, just because of
no,
how
that's
we're talking
okay.
about everything. But what did you think of the unresolved mysteries of the cheese and the Christmas box money? I feel like you kind of already said it, but
Well, just for me personally, honestly, I wanted to know where the cheese came from after the old man Elefante died. Did he
Mhm.
have it paid for in advance? That was kind of like what I was thinking, or possibly was it the wife? I also wanted to know where the Christmas box money went. Did Hetty hide it to give Sportcoat a purpose? Did she take it with her when she drowned and it got lost in the harbor? Did the Christmas money get reinvested into the church? Maybe she knew she was going to do that, so she reinvested it back into the church. I
Mhm.
mean, both mysteries were unresolved. However, I think solutions were available for both the cheese and the money. I think they were just symbols. Like, the cheese was like a reward for Sister Paul's faithfulness and being a good person and helping out the senior Elefante. the Christmas money to me was about the control. Sister G talks all about they didn't have control over a lot of things, but they had control over how they used that Christmas box money.
Yes.
And it kind of controlled Sport Coat throughout the story because he had something to focus on, like a mission, and once that mission was fulfilled or not, or he was satisfied because, well, it did get fulfilled if you think about it, because Elefante took care of it. It was sort of like once that's done. But again, that's Sport Coat not taking responsibility.
Yeah, the weird part about specifically talking about the Christmas money is that Sport Coat originally was going to visit Sister Paul because Hetty and Sister Paul were friends, and he had been given the recommendation by Rufus to go, and Rufus is the one who makes the King Kong, and go over there and ask if Sister Paul has any idea what could have happened to the Christmas money. And instead, it ends up being that Sport Coat learns about the soap.
The cheese.
The soap.
Oh,
Well,
the
the cheese
soap.
too, yeah,
Yeah,
the soap,
cheese.
and that's in the wall, and gets Elefante involved, and that's how they get the Venus of Willendorf out of the wall, and then you're just left there like, but you never asked about the damn Christmas money, and so it just becomes, to me, that I was very compelled about what happened to the Christmas box money. Like, that was actually my thing throughout the book. I'm like, I want to know what happened to that money. And the fact that you never learn, and all that happens is Sport Coat's like, well, we need like $4,000. And the elephant's like, I got you. And then just gives it to him. I'm like, that sucks. It's so unsatisfying. And then the whole thing with the cheese is, they get the biggest delivery of cheese that they've ever seen in their lives on the day of Sport Coat's funeral. And it says in the book, it's like, that's the last day that they ever got cheese. So it's like, okay, who made that decision?
Right.
Because it wasn't
Well, they gave them an overabundance of cheese. So it was almost like they gave them whatever was left on the cheese. Whatever the cheese, what do I want to say?
Prepaid cheese.
Whatever like, say Elefante Senior decided, I want this woman to have cheese until the day she dies, not realizing that Sister Paul's going to live to be 110. But and once she's gone, then it's like the debt is done, because she wouldn't take money from him either.
But she didn't die.
I know that. So that's what I'm saying. And I wonder if they went ahead and just got rid of the cheese, so they'd just be like,
we'll never know. Not everybody was like, the cheese came from Jesus. It was Jesus's cheese. And it's like, but why was the cheese tied to Sport Coat?
And I guess it's one of those things where it's like, for people like us, we want to know, like, what was the significance of it? But was it really as important? So they made it out to be. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is to that.
Oh, Jamie was saying that the banter in the audiobook. I did think about that when I was reading it. I was like, oh, who they got to read these is probably really funny.
Yeah.
Stina said, wait, I thought the money was found. It was not. The Venus of Willendorf was found in the wall of the church.
And I thought for sure they were going to find both. But then I was like, well, that wouldn't make sense because Hetty wouldn't know to put it there. So I kind of feel like there's a part of me that kind of feels like Hetty might have taken it with her.
Maybe.
Because then Sport Coat would have to take responsibility, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, I had questions.
I did too. I absolutely did, and I'm so disappointed.
Maybe I need to write a letter to James McBride and say, what happened to the cheese and what happened to the Christmas box? The Christmas box is driving Alex and I the most crazy.
Yes. And Zach says that just realized, going back to Haroldine, it's interesting. She's pretty much the only one without a ridiculous nickname, and all the trouble people not knowing each other's names caused, and she got out. That is a funny thing we didn't mention, is that Sport Coat and his friend Hot Sausage,
I thought that was hilarious,
each other for years, and they shared one license, and so the cops thought that Hot Sausage was Sport Coat when he was shot in the hospital, and you're just sitting there like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like,
this well, that's where I think just the silliness of it, the humor, to kind of like, negate the seriousness of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I did. So I have two more questions for
Okay.
us. One of I guess I could add on one more that would be funny. Do you want the funny question?
About the deacon.
Yeah, what does a deacon do? Can you tell me that?
Well, I can because I'm Catholic. And we have deacons in our church.
Okay, tell
And
me.
in the Catholic faith, there are actually two types of deacons. You have a transitional deacon, who is a man that is going to become a priest eventually, and he cannot be married, and he's basically married to the church, and he works for the church. And then you have a permanent deacon, and a permanent deacon is basically going to assist the priest. Like, they are allowed to baptize, they're allowed to marry, they can give communion, they can preside at a funeral. They're just basically there to assist the priest during mass, but they can be married and they can hold a day job. So it's sort of like a lay person that just has this title that allows them to do a little more. Both both deacons have to go to school. They have to go to theology classes and learn, whatever they need to do. But a transitional deacon basically is going to transition and become a priest. That is what a deacon is.
Thank you, because that's one of the biggest jokes in the book is people being like, "What is a deacon? I don't know. What does a deacon do?" And Sportcoat couldn't even really explain it. And Sportcoat definitely did not go to school to be a deacon. So basically, he was an honorary deacon because he helped out around the church.
Well, and also too, deacons, there are deacons in other faiths, and I guess depending on what their criteria for them to be a deacon, sport coat would be considered a permanent deacon, someone that would just assist with the church in whatever role they sought fit for him to do that.
Yeah, I like Stina saying Protestants are way more loosey goosey.
Well, but also too, like the Episcopalian Church, they have deacons as well, and from what I understand, they can be married. Now, their priest and their bishop and all that can be married. So I'm learning all of that about the Episcopalian faith because Andrew is going to be converting over to.
Oh,
Yes, he's going to be received at the end of September.
oh
Into
wow.
the Episcopalian Church, yes, because he's very much interested in theology and faith formation. When he was younger, he was an altar server and he just loved it. He took it very seriously and always talked about, I would love to be a priest because I love learning about religion, but he likes all types of religion. He likes learning about Buddhism and Hinduism and just what makes people tick with their beliefs or whatever. Well, there are things that he has issue with the Catholic Church that the Episcopal Church is a little bit more what's the word, accepting, or
It aligns more with his feelings.
with his values.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So anyway, yeah, a friend of mine, Debbie, and her husband just got received in August 10th, I think was the day we went to see them get received. So anyway, I'm learning all of that from him.
I think that's awesome, Kat.
Yeah,
Thank
he
you.
tells me all the time, he's like, Andrew will have these deep, philosophical discussions with me, and he'll say, so what you're saying that you don't agree with the Catholic Church, you get it at the Episcopal Church. I'm like, are you witnessing to me? Are you trying to convert me? Are you trying to pull me to the dark side? Is that what you're trying to do?
Oh, I can understand that that battle. I was raised Baptist and my family was Catholic, so that should tell you everything you need. So yeah, I get it. And then I got two more questions. I'm
Okay.
saving the best, what I think will be the best one for last. So this one is, did you find the connections between the characters to be contrived, or did you like the payoff in the end?
I didn't think the connections between them were contrived. I mean, I think all of the characters were connected to the community in some way. and that their paths crossed either indirectly at times, while other times it was more directly. I think in the past they were more like maybe indirectly through an older generation, and then they were directly linked because of the shooting.
Mm-hmm.
It was small. It was small serendipities that showed the goodness of the human spirit. That's what I wrote down here. I loved the connections and I loved the payoff of the story. Rich and vibrant storytelling with a nice blend of humor and drama with a hint of whimsy and the fantastical. That is my answer.
I like your answer, Kat.
I really was very thoughtful in my answer.
It was. You're going to be way more thoughtful than me. I'm going to be completely off the cuff about mine. My feeling about the ending is that some of the connections between the characters were a little heavy-handed because I thought that they came in so late. And because of the fact that we don't get some of the resolutions to the questions that are being asked throughout the book, you only get answers to some pieces, but not to others. And the fact that you kind of have like an information dump from Sister Paul when they go to visit her and she's telling the same story to different people, and then they're having to make those connections, and you're like, how many people have to talk to her before you realize that the box is behind the cinder block wall? Like we get it, at that point. And so it's not that I thought that the connections were contrived, because I think that they made sense. It's that I think that it just landed in such a way that it was a little heavy-handed and it wasn't as satisfying as I thought that it could be.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, and I think
I wanted everything to be happily ever after.
What'd you say?
I said I wanted everything to be happily ever after.
Which is fair. And you know what? I love a good happy ending. And I wanted things to end well for the characters too. It's just the way that it kind of goes like this throughout the book for you to get the circle. I'm like, it could have been done a little bit better. I've read books before where you get that circle at the end where you're like, oh, it all makes sense now. And I didn't feel that from this. I wasn't going, oh, at the end. That didn't happen. So but that was just for me.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fair.
That's fine.
That's fair.
Stina says, I like the connections and watching them being revealed. Well, my big thing. Hang on. Sorry.
I think also, to me, I just think, so much of the story too of just like the interactions and then the funny, quirky things that were happening, like the fact that Sister Paul had to help Elefante Senior drive a truck because his foot was broken. I mean, that's just the kind of stuff. I guess that's the whimsy and the fantastical stuff that I focused a lot on, was just. And also too, like the guy Earl, I'm like, this poor guy.
Earl. We didn't even talk about Earl.
Beat up.
He died too. He's the third one. He also died.
He died.
He died.
Did Punch kill him?
No, Geraldine did. Haroldine. It's implied that she took care of him.
Oh, I was hoping that the police. I thought the police had him in safety. I was hoping. No. Anyway, that poor guy. I swear, this would make a good movie, because I could so envision him like tiptoeing behind Sport Coat, ready to like knock him on the head with a wrench, and then he gets conked with the baseball, falls into the closet, and I mean, it was kind of just. And then Sport Coat's just like living his life, doesn't even know, and then same thing. I don't know. I thought the whole thing was
bourbon, and he also gets electrocuted.
Yes, the electrocuted part was hilarious too.
It really was like Home Alone. It's like he's trying to get him, and he just can't. Like everything's going wrong. It's but it was implied, I think, that Sport Coat was like protected. Because he had all this bad luck in his life, and he had all these ailments, but nothing had been able to kill him. And at the end of the day, that's another thing we didn't talk about. The only thing that killed Sport Coat was Sport Coat.
Yeah.
He had to take himself out because you know, like not he had just been through so much, and he just was a persistent fellow. He persisted. That's one of the
He
things about
did.
Sportcoat. So this will be my last question, and that is: was Hetty a figment of Sportcoat's imagination or an angel?
I put that Hetty seemed like Sportcoat's conscience.
Okay.
I think Hetty's death and how she dies impacts Sportcoat, and he has regret because he fails her. And so it was just his conscience to keep doing, try to make it right, with the church money. And that's what I thought.
Okay. So you didn't, so here's why I was curious about this, because, you know, Hetty starts relaying information about like her life without Sportcoat, of her saying like, I never told you this story about when I used to work for this white woman, and starts, you know, going on about her history of why she ended up moving and how the formation of the church happened. And the idea that Sportcoat just had that in the back of his mind somewhere when he wasn't around and he never paid attention to her, it's like, well, either his mind made it up, or, you know, it's implied that it's an angel that's coming to visit him. And given the religious nature of this book, I
Mhm.
wouldn't be surprised if that was implied, because the other part that, I mean, you could say it was Sportcoat's mind being nasty to him, but Hetty saying, I woke up and I was so enraged at the idea of having to deal with you one more day that I knew that I would do something to you. So I just walked out into the water myself and let it be in
Mhm.
God's hands. And she's admitting that she killed herself
Yeah.
because she just couldn't deal with him anymore.
Yeah.
And
He was
so,
tired, as Sister
right,
G says.
yeah, she was extremely tired, and understandably so. Um,
Yeah,
and
so in a sense like that, I would say it was more of an angel conscience, something spiritual for him, because he does gather information from that, whether it was in his subconscious or maybe, maybe he knew, but because of his situation, it came to the surface. I mean, I could see it being more of a spiritual thing. I mean, I would buy that.
I really could go either way. Like Zach saying, he felt like he was imagining her. Like I honestly could see it. 'Cause, like alcoholism, he's getting older. He misses his wife. You
Mhm.
know, it's like all these
I
things
think there
are
was so much
like,
regret because he
yeah,
knew that, I just thought it was so sad that, like, when they asked him, why didn't you go after her? Like he didn't even go to see where she was going. She went out in a storm. She went out in a snowstorm. And then he goes out to the harbor to go look for her. He doesn't see her. And then he just goes to church.
yeah.
Like,
Do you remember what he said about like why he didn't go out? He said, "Oh, it's because there's gangsters out there."
yeah,
And it's like, okay, so you're
because he
more
was
than,
afraid of the elephant. And then what
yeah,
did the elephant do? Showed so much respect for Hetty.
yep. Fished her out of the harbor and
Mhm.
gave and call went had one of his guys go get Sportcoat to
Right.
tell him that she had died.
And that he
And
had
so,
nothing to do with it,
yeah,
which,
Sportcoat sucked. He sucked so bad. But I liked whether it was supposed to be an angel or a figment of his imagination. I liked that part with Hetty because, you know, she morphed over the story too. It starts out that she's older and nagging him and just mad, and that's when I thought it was just his imagination. I was like, oh
mhm,
well, you know, he's just remembering what the end of their lives were. But when she started telling her stories and started getting younger and like nicer and kind of talking about like herself being up in heaven and how she's going to pass on, and like officially after like the moonflowers have been planted in the garden and everything, I'm like, is it implied that
yeah. I
she's an
mean, and that's
angel?
where the
Yeah,
fantastical element comes in there, which I'm
yeah,
okay with that. I mean, I kind of like that too, to kind of think she's at peace. And in some ways it's kind of good if she is, because she still looked after him.
oh she did. I would have hated him. Like if he was real and he had been in my life and like my life had been like hers, I would have despised him.
But look at how sad it is that she felt so trapped that the only way she could get out was to commit suicide because she was
Yeah,
so tired.
yeah. It's awful. But that was another thing, talking about the nature of it. Yeah, you did say it being trapped, and Hetty was the one that the only way that she could get out was to, like, die. And for
Mhm.
Sportcoat, his only way to feel relief from his alcoholism was to
Mhm.
die.
Because he was trapped by it.
Yeah, but other people, what they were trapped by, they were able to get out.
Mhm.
And I guess there's something poetic in that. Like, I don't know how to explain my feeling about Sport Coat accurately, I think, to everybody, just because, like hating alcoholism and what it does to people is so
Well,
personal.
I mean, that has a
But
lot to do with, like, a personal experience and how it touches you and what you've experienced or seen or had to deal with. And so any redeeming qualities that Sport Coat would have that another person would see, you don't, because it's overshadowed so much by all the wrong that
yeah,
he's done because of alcohol. And the thing, at the end of the day, he was the one that made the decision to drink. I
yep,
mean, and to get to that point. But at the same time, I also want to hold the people responsible who provided it to him, because it's like nobody seemed to think it was a problem. Like, they were okay with him being this drunk, funny guy, because he's got a good heart. And, oh, remember, haha, he was the one that was the umpire for both teams. And, I think they overlooked the fact that at the end of the day, it hurt him more, because if he couldn't get the King Kong, I mean, he would have had to
stop
go
it
find
somewhere
it
else.
somewhere else. You
Well,
know what I'm
he
saying?
did. I mean, he stole it
I
from
mean,
the.
he would steal it, but he would only be able to do that so often. I mean, what was he drinking the majority of the time? The
It
King
was
Kong.
Yeah, it was the King Kong or whatever alcohol people were giving him.
Right.
So yeah, yeah. And that's the thing, right? Is like Sport Coat was hanging around with other alcoholics. Like Rufus is the one making it. Hot Sausage is the one imbibing with him. Like he had that was his drinking buddy. And Hot Sausage was the only one to witness his death too. you
Mhm.
know and nobody. That was one of the things that was a little confusing about the end of the book, because we do get that time skip, is when Sister G was like, well, what has he been doing all this time? And it's like, what do you mean he's been working out in back of your church on this garden? What do you mean he just has, like, disappeared after the thing that happened with Deems? He's been working. Like,
Right.
I was a little confused by that, and if you can explain that to me, feel free. But I didn't think that timeline lined up quite very well.
I'm almost wondering if he did it whenever people were just not around.
Like at night,
Mhm.
maybe.
Yeah, I think he did a lot of the things that he did in secret. I mean, he was very good at hiding out where people couldn't find him. Because remember how Potts is like, oh, the people are telling me they're not being very helpful. Oh, he just went around the corner, or he did whatever. He was very good at disappearing.
Yeah, that's true. That is very true. Zach said a lot of it was about how the oppressed end up oppressed themselves. Or you mean the oppressors end up oppressed? Or oppressed end up oppressing themselves?
Mm.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, about how, like, he could have had a better situation, but he chose to drink and therefore he didn't. But then
It really is ironic that everyone who left the South, where they were being oppressed,
Mhm.
everybody was pretty successful except for Sport Coat. And I mean, he basically wore Hetty down. So, I mean, I think if he would never have followed her, Hetty's situation would have been a little bit different.
Well, yeah, I mean, she was already providing for them. She worked full time and was already taking care of their child, and he would have been one less person she had to take care of. She probably would have lived,
Mhm.
which is sad to think
Mhm.
about. But yeah. Not to end on that note, goodness. But I guess we should end by, asking, did your review of this change at all? I'm gonna guess probably not.
No.
Okay. Okay. So you ended up with a
It
5 and
is still, it's a 5-star
three.
read for me. I can overlook a lot when it comes to fiction.
Mhm.
I can see where people would have trouble, and that's where I would say to somebody, I love this book, but if you're the type of person that doesn't like something that is slow and flows like a lazy river and, kind of thing, this might not be the book for you. If you have a hard time with a lot of characters, and some of them not very likable because many of the characters are flawed in this book or whatever, this might not be the book for you. But I mean, if you want beautiful prose and you want, the goodness of the human spirit and the themes and the symbolism and looking at a character development of some of these characters, then I would say this would be the book for you.
And I love that, Kat. I think that's great because I really can't say much. Like, I'm not going to refute that because all I would say about it is I thought that it was fine. There were things about the characters that no, I couldn't look past. Had it been different, because I love character-driven stories. Character-driven stories are typically my favorite, which is why it's a little surprising that I ended up feeling about this the way that I did. But that's just a personal thing. So I would agree with your assessment. And Zach says, if you had a chance, would you try King Kong? No, I would not, because I bet it tastes like paint thinner. So
Mad Dog. That's what I was thinking it is. Mad Dog.
Yeah, it's I mean, it sounds practically like moonshine. I mean, just like, made out back in a car engine somewhere. It's like drive you crazy. So no, I wouldn't. Cian says, after reading the Heaven and Earth grocery store and getting a better handle on the author's style, I understand this book better, especially with this discussion. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. That's nice that you read the other one too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to reading the other one.
So I guess we should talk about what our next book club pick is, Kat. So we do have to make an amendment to the date that we're going to be meeting. So originally for this book, we were going to meet October 30th, but I'm out of town for work, and Kat is going to a movie viewing, and so we need to move it to the week ahead. So we'll post it and everything that we're gonna move it to October 23rd. So we will be reading The Woman in the Library by Sulari Gentile, and
this is a mystery,
like a murder mystery.
I'm very excited. Really, and it takes place in a library.
Yeah, and it's short. It's a pretty short book. It's under 300 pages. So if you're looking for kind of a quicker read, this might be a good one, especially since we're reducing the amount of time by a week. So something to keep in mind. But I'm looking forward to that one, Kat.
Yeah, 250 pages.
Not bad at all.
No, I don't think so. But yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. This was purely a cover buy for me. I went to Books A Million one day and I was like, ooh, I like stories in the library. And it's a woman in the library. And then when I read that it had to do with a murder.
Like,
one of the people in the library is a murderer.
I love closed room mysteries when you're sitting there pointing the finger going, which one of you was it sitting at this table with me? I think that one's going to be a lot of fun. But I do want to say thank you very much for those of you who hung out with us. As always, thank you. We had a great time. And we look forward to seeing you both during our regularly scheduled programming and our next book club discussion. So SD said, thanks for the discussion. Heading to bed now. We'll have a wonderful night. And a wonderful night to the rest of you. Stina said, thank you. Thank you
so much.
And Zach, I know you were hanging out the whole time, and Jamie, I believe, was as well. So thank you all, and have a lovely evening.
Bye.
Bye.